I'm going to share 15 of my income streams, the pros and the cons of each, and tips on how you can start creating your own. The first one is my main business. How I first started was just buying multifamily or individual rentals that cash flowed. I do agree with their book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was trying to grow my passive income just to offset my expenses. That's how I started. I started with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath that cash flowed a little bit, and then I just scaled from there. So now we have over 10,000 units that cash flow millions of dollars each and every month. So there's 3 main businesses from that. The second most important one is my MC residential or property management company, which currently has about 300 employees. And this company specifically was set up to manage my investments or my properties so that I wasn't consumed with all the work that those require, and I also had my free time back. So as I was building all of these income streams, I was also super conscious about the time that each one of them is taking, because what I really want is the income, and I don't want to spend any time doing it. The property management company is specifically designed to perform to the business plans. Whenever I buy a property, I put together a business plan of how I believe it should operate, and I hand that over to the property management company, which I also own with my partner Ross, and that company then performs all the daily duties. That company produces hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit each and every year. But I don't look at that company as much as a passive income strategy as much as an opportunity for me to manage my own investments, even though it produces millions of dollars a year of free cash flow. The other 2 businesses that also stemmed from those original investment properties was my development company and my construction company. So the development company is simply the company that puts together the whole deal. They go out and find a piece of land and build the infrastructure and everything to develop the whole project. That's called a developer, or somebody that actually goes and finds a multifamily deal and puts it all together. That would be the developer. That business produces millions of dollars in development fees as we get projects together. However, sometimes these deals can take months or even years to put together. But nonetheless, there's always fees for the development business. And then inside of that business sometimes requires a general contractor. For example, when we are building something from dirt and ground up construction, then we also have in-house our construction company. So the developer hires the general contractor that builds the project, and then when the project is done, we hire our property management company to lease it up and manage it to stabilization. Then the fourth one is the asset management company, which oversees the property manager. So you have the developer that puts the deal together, the general contractor that actually builds the project, the property manager that actually does all the work to lease it up and stabilize the project, and then you have the asset management company that actually oversees the entire thing. All 4 of those companies all work together. They produce fees and income and passive income to pull the whole project off to a successful outcome. The next one is my individual books, of which I have 7 books currently. Some of them have hit bestseller status, some have not. Each one is priced around $20 or $30, and every single sale that happens, no matter where it is around the world, and some of these books are in 10 or 15 different languages, it just is a reoccurring revenue when people continue to buy them. So here we are 20 years later, 7 books written. All of those books continue to generate monthly reoccurring income based on sales. And now, of course, we also have the ebook and even audiobook. So once I wrote the physical book, I've been able to go down the other 2 verticals inside of the book business and generate additional revenue that way. And that, of course, led me to my book publishing company, which I currently have as well, which is simply distribution. So people write books all the time, but unless people can actually see them and buy them, it doesn't really matter. That's why most books never sell more than 1,000 books. So the key to publishing is actually distribution. So I have set up worldwide distribution, certainly in all the major countries we have the rights to be able to publish internationally and domestically all these different kinds of books. And I simply did this to continue the momentum with my own books that I had written. But now what's happening is other authors that have now written books that are having a tough time selling them, they come to a company like ours, and then we do a revenue share model based on dropping it into our existing distribution structure. So the key to publishing, of course, is distribution. And once we put all those deals together from my own books, then we started to attract a lot of different authors. Then we started to help them make more sales on their books, because the key to the entire business, if you think about with anything, it's all about distribution. So cutting deals internationally and domestically with all the bookstores, including all the retail stores like Costco, Staples, Office Max, etc., that all takes time and lots of agreements. So once you have all that in place, then it's just a matter of making sure that the distribution flows through there and the accounting flows back. So the publishing company was set up primarily to keep the momentum of book sales for the ones I have written, but also now for other authors. So during the pandemic, I created the kenmcelroy.com channel, which you guys are now seeing. The interesting story about that is I started doing videos at my house during the pandemic, and a couple of them went viral. And I had no idea that YouTube even paid me for people that were watching the video. I literally had no idea. So it wasn't until a few months later that somebody said, "Hey, how much revenue have you made from YouTube?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Apparently, somebody at my office set up the YouTube account, and all the money had been funneling into this account, and I didn't even know where it was. That's actually what started the kenmcelroy.com channel, is I had a bunch of money sitting in this account thanks to YouTube, and I used it simply to build a team out to make it what it is today. The YouTube, the podcast, the merch, and all that stuff generated this learning channel for kenmcelroy.com. And of course, all of those things generates plenty of income each and every year, which led me to the subscription-based model of Ken Pro. When I realized there's a lot of people wanted access to me, it was once I created the vertical of being on YouTube, then I started to realize that there's a lot of people that wanted coach and mentored and advice. And so we created the kenmcelroy.com Pro, which is the inner circle of people that can ask really good questions and have deals and that they want information on, or maybe they want advice on. And then that, of course, led me to Limitless, which was a result of trying to communicate better to our investors. Once you start to scale up with property investment, you realize that you have hundreds, even thousands of investors that want to meet with you annually. So that's when I created Limitless with Carl Yarber. I was at actually an LP conference in Laguna Beach, and we were sitting at the bar grabbing some lunch. And I said, I really need some kind of a venue to be able to put on, because a lot of my investors and a lot of my LPs, they have the same questions I do. How do I invest in oil and gas? How do I invest in gold and silver? How do I invest in self-storage or office? A lot of these people have a lot of questions. And I, of course, is confused as anyone, because I was in my lane doing multifamily. So as I start to make more money and I start to branch out what I'm doing, I also don't want to be in one spot. We created Limitless 3 years ago, which is at limitlessexpo.com. And now we have 50 speakers a year, 2,000 people coming. And this event generates millions of dollars each and every year just for one weekend a year. Then I found at Limitless that there's a lot of people that want one-on-one time, which of course at this point my time is extremely valuable. So first I went to my wife and I said, would it be okay if I put together a mastermind with a few other people? If we just did 4 weekends a year and it was a really intensive personal development strategy with high net worth people that pay $50,000 a year to be a part of. She said yes, and so that created the collective inner circle. As you guys know, we have 5 partners. We have George Gammon, we have Jason Hartman, we have Russ Gray, and Robert Helms, and myself all run the collective inner circle. And what we found is that in every crowd, there's always the top percent that needs and wants more mentoring and coaching. And so the collective inner circle is a way to actually give that one-on-one to people in a small setting. And so we do that 4 times a year, and that's turned into another stream of income. And then as an LP, like many of you might be watching, I invest all over the place. So I've invested in gold mines, I've invested in oil wells, I've invested in all kinds of things specifically for hedging against the dollar, but also for cash flow and or tax benefits or tax savings that I might be able to get in that particular year. So some of the businesses I'm invested in as an LP are like dog crates, collapsible dog crates, a golf business, a startup in the golf techs on the tech side, home smart technology. So smart technology for homes in the apartment space, which is of course related, but it's with somebody that I trust. Wine storage, which is just like self-storage except smaller, and you get like $250 to $350 per month for these wine lockers. Rehab centers in both Texas and Virginia for first responders and PTSD. So I keep spreading my money around in places like that, including the Veterans Fund as kind of one of the newer ones, the mailbox companies with Lisa we've talked to you guys about. All of those things are opportunities for me to invest with other people. So the podcast and Limitless and the masterminds are also a way to find out who's really moving the needle outside of my little circle. And then I can invest in a lot of those things because they're people that I develop relationships with. And of course, I've owned billboards and I've converted them from two-sided to digital. And I've been doing that over the last 5 or 6 years. And now we're actually acquiring billboard companies because billboards provide cash flow, but they also provide specific tax advantages for purchasing them as well. So these are a few of my income streams I have, and they all happened organically. I have more, but I think you guys kind of get the point. What happens from my experience is that sometimes some of them are going really well and they don't need a lot of management, and some of them are not, and they require a little bit more management. So I'm constantly just moving from company to company and managing the cash flows of each. But I'm doing all of this in about 90 minutes to 120 minutes a week, each and every Tuesday. I try to condense them all here, and I have people running every single one of these businesses so that it doesn't take a tremendous amount of my time. So hopefully you realize also that each time I started into some adventure, like writing a book, it eventually turned into all kinds of revenue streams, like the ebook, like the audiobook, like the publishing, and all those things. I was always trying to figure out ways to make it bigger than the book, and also that it had enough income to be able to support a team of people to run it. So then I'm just now managing the people to actually generates the cash flow. It's the same thing with my real estate company. It's the same thing with my billboard company. It's the same thing with everything. I'm just trying to create different buckets of revenue, but I always want somebody else to run it. And then I can manage them as opposed to actually managing the actual asset. This is just my path. I think that everybody has their own path, and I think that everybody is in their own circle of influence, whatever that might be. And I can assure you that inside of your circle, wherever it might be, there's some way to make money from that. You just have to stick to what you know and be open-minded. The key here is just to start stuff. And like for me, like I would have never in my wildest dreams believed that I could ever write a book. And then that all put me on stages next to people. I was getting speaking fees, and all of a sudden I started to build this groundswell of people just from writing that one book. And of course, that started from me meeting Robert Kiyosaki and pitching him on a real estate deal. So all of these things happen just organically, sometimes strategically, because you obviously are trying to get in front of different kinds of people. But you just have to keep an open mind and just try stuff, and then just realize that that might not be the end. There might be multiple possibilities inside of that. So in my case, all of my side hustles all resonate from the investment piece that I started with at the very beginning of this video, which is, of course, the real estate company. Almost everything I do happens vertically inside of that. It all pours back into the same thing. I'm sure this is overwhelming for a lot of people who just have a regular job. I used to be that way as well. And because of that, I just made a video on how you can realistically escape the rat race and quit your 9-to-5 job. You can check that out here.